Welcome to the SuperPhone Standard podcast. I'm Rob, and today we have guest Billy McFarland. You may have seen or heard of Billy from his involvement in the first Fyre Festival. However, for this podcast, we are discussing entrepreneurship as well as SMS marketing. So welcome, Billy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rob. Huge fan of SuperPhone and longtime user. I think I joined the platform in like 2013 initially. So kind of crazy to see what's happened over the past 10 years.
Absolutely, man. It's been great having you. So now let's go ahead and kick things off. Now, for those who don't really know, you are an entrepreneur at heart. You have built and sold many businesses, even when you were a lot younger as a teenager. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about your experience on how that started, what the journey was like, and how things have been from then?
Sure. So I started learning how to program when I was in fifth grade. And these are in like the early days of cable internet. And as a kid, technology was a really cool way to essentially create my own rules and like break the boundaries that a traditional 10 or 11-year-old kid would have. And as I got older, I found technology to be a great way to bring people together through different experiences. And I'm attempting to build my career based on creating adventure by connecting people from different industries and different worlds.
That's great. So now when you initially started for your first business, I believe you were 13?
Yep.
So how was that? How did that come
Yeah.
about?
So I started two companies in middle school at 13. One was a web hosting business, and the next was a social network called Your Hot Site. And it was aiming to essentially be a private MySpace for middle school kids. So this is like in the pre-Facebook era. And yeah, I think like from a young age, I just realized how the internet was this incredible platform to really explore and follow your passions and really find ways to meet people that I never could have met. I had 3 full-time employees that I was managing for my like 7th grade math class. And if I kind of followed the traditional norms, I would never have been able to even meet these people, like let alone work with them. So I think the internet opened up this whole world of kind of creating your own path and just meeting really interesting people from around the world.
That's great, man. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pivot a little bit more around just challenges that come around with just marketing or particularly event marketing in a massive scale, right? So now you had experience in the past with the initial Fyre Festival, but what would you say is the most significant lessons that you learned from that experience, and how have they informed your approach to really just going about event marketing since then? Because there's a lot of logistics that come into play, and how do you manage all of those communications at a large scale?
I think the biggest takeaway is that it's really, really hard to create a cultural moment. But then once you're able to do so, that moment is extremely valuable. And I think most of us have seen the Orange Tile campaign that launched the first Fyre Festival that kind of created this demand and hype for that first event. But I think like looking back now, there's just like so much noise out there. And your job as a marketer is how can you take your brand further? And how can you do something different to create a moment that actually lasts beyond a single tangible event or product line?
Okay. So now let's just say if someone is looking to start a business and, marketing is necessarily not their forte, but there also is an important aspect just for a business to just acquire data before a product launches, before it's officially released. So let's just say in this case, if someone is looking to introduce product and they're looking to build hype around pre-sale, how would you go about doing that, given the fact that you've also been doing that with Fyre Festival too? And how do you build hype around pre-sale for a product that, let's just say, or an event or anything of that matter, for someone who just hasn't really had the exposure to it just yet, but is really excited about what's to come?
So I think the biggest thing for pre-sale is arming your customers with the pitch so they know how to describe your product. I think a lot of companies make a mistake where they're good at communicating directly with their customer, but they're bad at arming their customer with a succinct and compelling pitch to allow them to describe the product, which essentially creates the viral factor. And for Fyre, our pitch is very simple. Like, we are giving you 3 days that you will talk about for the rest of your life. And for all the bad decisions and all the bad mistakes that we did for the first Fyre Festival, it still is that moment for the 1,500 people who actually arrived. Like, they have talked about that moment consistently since it happened. And the idea for Fyre too is how can we allow you to be Jack Sparrow for a weekend and give you 3 days that you won't forget for the rest of your life. So I think pre-sale is all about not just selling directly to the customer, but arming the customer with an understanding so they can sell your product for you.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, that definitely makes sense. And I would say pre-sale as well tends to be an area that a lot of, let's just say, aspiring entrepreneurs have a challenge with, because it's really one of those things where how do you keep the hype and how do you keep people excited until the official rollout of the product? So that's
It's just
definitely
hard to get people to care, right? And I think
right, right.
most of the time an entrepreneur's like success will be determined based on their ability to get people to care about their product or their brand. And ultimately, like that is the job of a founder. Like, how do you get people to care about your product?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. So now let's just say, given the fact that you have been using Superphone for a while, and we thank you for being a part of Superphone since way back. Now, how have you been using Superphone to just connect with your audience? I know you're sending multiple text messages, but what is your strategy around using SMS marketing to really just broaden your reach?
So our entire strategy to keep the relevance, to keep the attention around Fyre is to publicly create controversy. And we want our customers to be 50% sure Fyre 2 is fake and not happening, and then 50% sure it's going to be the best 3 days of their life. And I think our ability to create marketing hype and demand is kind of threading the needle based on controversy. And whereas Superphone has been a great platform to actually answer questions and deliver value to those fans who believe in us and want to engage with us. So publicly, we will blast out controversy, create a storm, and try to be that proverbial airplane flying through the storm where people have a front row seat. Then privately, Superphone is a great way for us to communicate with all of our real supporters and real fans and deliver the actual information about what they need to know for our brand.
And how have you felt, which I'm sure that, for those who really want to have direct access to founder, someone that they follow, have you had from your experience as text messages being a form of, okay, people like this level of direct contact with me and my team and knowing, hey, if you have a question, you can just shoot me a text and my team will be able to help out? Or do you feel people still prefer just the old school approach of, okay, let me just send an email, let me wait for a response back? How do you feel just the direct access via text messages has kind of helped you and your team?
I think one of the biggest surprises about Superphone are the number of life-changing relationships that I formed from people that came from a Superphone mass update text. So it's kind of created this path for people who are strong fans of Fyre or a brand to communicate back to us and add value. And they've ended up meeting and becoming like literally lifelong friends with a handful of people who have like reached out through Superphone. So I think it's a great channel to communicate effectively with a large number of your fans. But two, it's also proved to be probably an even better channel to develop long-term relationships that I believe are going to help me both in business and personal life for many years to come.
Yeah, man. And you've actually have a great click-through rate with your text messages, which is a little over 50%. And that's pretty good. And you have over 15,000 new conversations consistently in your account. Now, what features or tactics do you feel has kind of been helping you with driving engagement? Is it more so, do you have any automations in place that you reach out to people regularly? Are you sending frequent updates? Or do you have a certain funnel that people are going through to kind of go through the pipeline to be able to reach out?
We launched the Fyre Superphone by doing a treasure hunt where our customers had to text in to get clues for the treasure hunt. And that was a really cool way to start building automations and like building various parts of our funnel. So we learned a lot about our customers through the treasure hunt, like where they're based, what they're looking for, what friends they're approaching the treasure hunt with. And that was a really cool way for us to start kind of creating different friend groups and like silos within Superphone. So I think it's about finding fun ways to connect the text to like real world quests or experiences. And every time we do that, it allows us to go deeper and form a better relationship.
Yeah, that's great. And that's through that was through Pirate, right?
Correct. Yes.
Pirate. Yep. Yep. No, that was great. Okay, so now let's just say around just planning, organization, partnerships, collaborations. These are just important pieces of just building successful events, right? So I noticed that you're using a platform called Posh as opposed to Eventbrite. Are you particularly in a space where you're constantly looking for new ways to innovate, new tools, new platforms to use? how has your experience kind of been around using just newer platforms, and you more so just kind of test things out, see if they work before you decide to commit to them, or are you just constantly kind of forward thinking in terms of what the next deliverable could be?
So the entire ethos of Fyre is we want the explorers, like we want the people who want to go on an adventure where they're not sure of the result. We're not looking for your festival or vacation attendee who wants to go get spritzed by the pool at the Four Seasons. It's more about, we're going to go on these 3 days. We're going to explore. We're going to island hop, and like we don't know who we're going to meet, and we don't know like what's going to happen. So Fyre needs to be embracing of like that core ethos, and we can't just kind of like try to be another festival. It's not just about the music. I think the music is a backdrop for the exploration and the adventure. And whether it's as simple as finding like a really cool ticket partner like Posh, or using a platform like SuperPhone to communicate various clues or quests, I think we need to kind of embrace that concept of we're all about the adventure, and we're all about the relationships that are formed along the way that we didn't necessarily know that was going to happen.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense, and that's great. And I would say that as well is one of the pieces that is very important with just finding the right companies that you want to collaborate with to really just help you with your initiative and what you're looking to accomplish. So,
Yeah.
okay, now let's just say for someone who's just kind of in a position where they're new to just the concept of marketing and funnels and really user engagement. That has constantly been evolving. As we all know, we have AI now. There's so many things kind of going on. But how do you really structure your campaigns to really drive awareness or conversion? I know the clues are definitely one thing. There's definitely that excitement for people to feel as though, okay, what's next, right? What's next to come? I subscribed. I got this text message.
Right.
Now, what else can I expect? And I think just kind of leaving that open space of anticipation could be one field. But is there anything else or any advice that you would give to someone to really help with conversions, just
Yeah.
generally?
So our brand is interesting because the festival itself has a relatively small number of attendees, but the overall like awareness, media, lifestyle aspect of Fyre is far larger than a few thousand people who can attend an island for like one singular weekend. And our lifestyle aspect of the brand is all about embracing this controversy and embracing the mindset where we are going to try to bite off more than we can chew. And we're not sure of the outcome, but we're going to form great relationships along the way. So I think it's all about kind of finding your ethos and going all into that. And like, we're trying to embrace the unknown. We want people to be uncomfortable. We want them to know that whatever they do with Fyre, whether it's a zero gravity trip, whether it's an island trip, or whether it's a festival, they're going to have a few day period that they're not going to forget for the rest of their lives. So I think it's all about like, how can you apply that theme wide and then use tools like SuperPhone to really drill in with your power users, power fans that kind of buy your core products.
Okay. Now let's fast forward, look to the future. What are your aspirations? What are your goals, both personally as well as professionally? What would you say your plans are to just rebrand and build new experiences and businesses moving forward?
Yeah. So like, beyond all of the ambitions with Fyre, I've made more than my fair share of terrible decisions and mistakes from years ago. So like, underlying all of that, I'm really motivated to pay everybody back, both figuratively and literally, whether that's emotionally, whether that's trust, whether that's financial. Like, that is the number one step for me. And Fyre is just like such a great tool and such a great opportunity to have a platform in order to do that. So I think one side is like rebuilding relationships, and tools like SuperPhone are great for either forming new relationships or getting back in touch with old people. Then two is building something that positively impacts the life of a lot of people. And if I can take the good of the Fyre brand, if I can take the connectivity and the experience and the adventure and the relationships and share that with thousands of people, like, that's really a fulfilling journey for me.
Now, let's pivot as well to just entrepreneurship in general. So for someone who's just entirely new to the space and they're looking to really figure out, okay, what is their specialty? What are they good at? How can they really just hone in and focus on what's needed to really grow the business? And really just branding as well. That's another, important aspect of just marketing and really user engagement. So what advice do you have there around, number one, branding in general, And then number two, just around building a business, being consistent at it, and making sure that if you really have a vision, you kind of see that vision.
I think the most important theme, and it applies to both questions here, is like, don't stop moving. A lot of really smart people kind of have this analysis paralysis where they spend too much time like thinking about brand and about product and about potential problems that may exist in the future. And that actually kind of like kills momentum. I think as an entrepreneur, so many issues that we foresee in the future solve themselves if we just take action today. And so this idea of like, don't stop moving, and your brand in 3 years is going to be totally different than it is today now. So like, don't over plan and over analyze and just take action. I think entrepreneurs who have like a default mode of just like going are the ones who find the outside success.
Yeah, that's very true. I would say, a lot of people definitely get stuck in that analysis paralysis space, and you start kind of zoning off a little bit, thinking about what's to come, what you can anticipate in the future. And then before you know it, you realize you spent all this time just in the planning stage and not actually executing and following through. So
I think it's really easy to be like, oh, well, if I do this in 2 years, I'm going to have this issue. And sure, that could happen. But almost every time when you actually take action, the problems that you think are actually problems all solve themselves far before you get there. So it's like, don't worry about it until it comes and just take action today.
Right. No, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Well, Billy, it's been great. And thank you again for joining us at the SuperPhone Standard podcast. For anyone who is interested in learning more about you, what you do, Fyre 2, as well as any other projects you have in the future, how can they learn more? How can we reach you? What information would you
have? Thanks, Rob. So it's at PYRT-Billy on socials. And yeah, once again, happy to be here. And thanks for inviting me. Like, I've literally been a SuperPhone customer, I think, for almost 10 years now. So I've seen it go through all the iterations, and through my previous businesses, I've used it. But like, truly below everything, I have formed a handful of relationships through SuperPhone that have impacted my life. They were there for me in the hardest times. Now they're there for me as I'm rebuilding. So yeah, really, really cool. And ultimately, life is about who we go through the journey with. And SuperPhone has materially changed that for the positive for me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Billy. It's been great. Thank you again for being a part of SuperPhone for so long. And we look forward to seeing what you have in store in the future.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.